It's another show. I'm on that mob beat flow. I'm gonna take it slow. Challenge LeBron. Oh no, don't try to pass or lay it off the glass. Now Boston is coming for the Cavs. So sad. Rookie Watson tore his ACL. So bad. Decline of the NFL. The herd is so scattered. What's he talking about? His Buckeye darlings on the wrong end of a route. Some bad basketball teams are shooting from the hip, and the early surprises start to take a dip. Carmelo has finally regained his joy and fun, but OKC still look like a shook one. Hey guys, Ball Don't Lie, episode 4. Thanks for tuning in again today. We got a lot of things to cover, but I'm going to try and keep it shorter than I have before. It's been like 30 minutes long. You might get a little bit bored watching for that long. I'm still going to cover NFL, NCAA football, and also the NBA. Just like I was talking about in my lyrics earlier, the NFL is kind of on its way down. It seems like the popularity for the NFL is really declining. It seems to be, a lot of people think it's just because of the anthem protests, which has been kind of ridiculous. The amount of protests and people thinking that's kind of a really big deal. I think it's just because the NFL has just been kind of boring lately and there's not a lot of continuity with the league. There's new players every week that are good. That's why I don't play much fantasy football anymore, because it's a new player every week and it's just kind of about luck, I think, a lot of times. But regardless, still touching on the NFL a little bit. Some big games this week. The Saints are still on a big winning streak and still dominating their division. The Eagles play the Broncos, and the Broncos have probably one of the best defenses in the league, but the Eagles are the best team in the league, so that should be a pretty good matchup there. It looks like the Patriots are controlling once again the AFC while the Eagles are controlling the NFC. The Rams play at New York today. New York finally gets their third wide receiver Sterling Shepard back, but they still are without their other two, so look for the Rams to take that one today. The Raiders have to get a win today at Miami, and Miami has to get a win against the Raiders. Both those teams are really fighting for a wild card spot. And then I think the game of the week is probably going to be Kansas City at Dallas, because Dallas is still, I think, a great team, probably the third best in the NFC, but their record doesn't reflect it. Ezekiel Elliott still gets to play today, but after this, he's probably going to be out for 6 games due to his suspension for his assault case that he had, and for his suspension that he had to serve earlier, but has gotten moved back twice. He has gotten a leave twice for that, so this is kind of his last game of the season probably, and they're playing Kansas City, who's still doing really well in the AFC. They're 6-2, but I think Dallas is going to pull it out this week. As I said earlier as well, Deshaun Watson just tore his ACL. I think he was a fan favorite by everyone. A rookie coming out of Clemson. They beat Alabama, so everyone loves him, of course, because of his win against Alabama. He was playing really well as a rookie for the Texans, and the Texans were starting to play really well, possibly win their division this year, but he tore his ACL in practice, of all places, not even in a game, which is really unfortunate for Houston, because now they're without their best defensive player in J.J. Watt and their best offensive player in Deshaun Watson. So that's going to be really tough for the Texans to bounce back from that. So they really don't have much of a quarterback behind him. Tom Savage was their quarterback that started the year, but he wasn't very effective. And they're playing against the Colts, who haven't been that bad actually without Andrew Luck. So that should be an interesting game. But other than that, the NFL really just kind of bores me now, because I just don't see much excitement in it. There's players that get injured and players that, were good one week and the next week they forget how to play football. So basically, I just haven't been tuning into the NFL that much. College football, on the other hand, has been wild this year as well. And I'm going to call out Colin Cowherd. I normally like listening to him, but this last couple weeks, he's been really on the Ohio State horse, and I really have been kind of questioning his mentality and his mental health, because he's been saying Ohio State is going to crush Alabama in the national championship, which is absolutely absurd. Ohio State played at Iowa this week and lost by 31 points. Yeah, great job, Colin Cowherd. You really picked a good one, didn't you? Besides that, he also had Penn State in the college football playoff. And what happened to them? They lost to Michigan State. So Colin Cowherd always claims that he's more about football and he has more football knowledge and basketball knowledge. But I think his basketball knowledge has been on point, while his football knowledge has been an elementary school kid where he doesn't really know much. He just likes one team, which is clearly Ohio State. So Ohio State's definitely out. Penn State's definitely out. Clemson got a really impressive win at North Carolina State, which is wonderful for them, because that was a really good game down the stretch. It was close, but Clemson pulled it out Wisconsin dominated Indiana. A lot of people thought Indiana could upset them. Clemson's still looking good. I still think that they're the second best team in the nation. Georgia's still number 1, but they played South Carolina. They got a win this week by 14. But I still think they're the third best team compared to Alabama and Clemson. Alabama got a win against LSU by 14 points this week, which is pretty impressive. Their defense still looking great. The funny part about what Cowherd was saying is that Alabama wouldn't be able to move the ball against Ohio State and maybe not get it past the 50, which again is really, really stupid. Alabama, I think, is still number 1. Notre Dame got a great win, but I'm still not on the Notre Dame train yet. They've played some good teams, but I think they've still got some really tough games to play. And I think they're bound to lose one of those games. I do agree with Colin Cowherd on Notre Dame, though, because he thinks that Notre Dame is just very one-dimensional, and that can't win you a national title, which I do believe. But Oklahoma got a great win this week at Oklahoma State. That was a really hyped up game, and it was fun to watch, but it was more like a basketball game than a football game. It was 38-38 at halftime. That's a pretty decent college basketball score right there. Baker Mayfield set the Oklahoma record for 598 passing yards, which is ridiculous. There was no defense, just like the Big 12 always has. TCU got a good win. Miami got a really impressive win. They've won by really close margins against many of their subpar opponents, but they won a great game against Virginia Tech this week, so they could find themselves moving up a few spots, maybe to number 7 or so in the playoff rankings. Who I was really impressed with yesterday, though, was University of Washington. They played really well against Oregon. They just dominated them. They looked great on both sides of the ball. Oregon did run for about 200 yards against them, but that's because that's all Oregon could do. They couldn't pass the ball. The quarterback for Oregon only had about 27 yards passing in the first half, and that was due to Washington's great defense. And Washington just looks really solid besides their one loss to Arizona State. Before this week, I kind of had them as an outside chance at making the college football playoff just because they had dropped all the way to 12. But now I've got them a little bit higher. I think they really could if they win out and dominate in the Pac-12 championship. If they don't dominate, though, it's going to be tough for them because of the teams who are ahead of them. I think a one-loss Georgia team, their one loss being in the SEC championship game, would really put them still above Washington. Clemson still has to win all their games and the ACC title game, but I don't think any 2-loss teams are getting in. So Washington has a shot if a couple of teams ahead of them lose, like TCU, Miami, Oklahoma, and maybe Clemson or Notre Dame. But they've still got a shot. It's still an outside chance. Their domination against Oregon really improved their standing with that. Going to the NBA has been still whack. I'm still confused about what is going on. Nothing makes sense anymore in the NBA, actually. The Boston Celtics lost their first 2 games, and they lost without Gordon Hayward, and people were kind of freaking out about the Celtics. I still thought they were about the 5th best team in the East, maybe. But they've now won 7 straight, including a very impressive comeback victory against the Thunder the other night. And the Celtics look really good, and it's not just Kyrie Irving. He looks pretty good. He had a rough first half, but in the second half he showed he's just the regular Kyrie Irving where he can't be stopped. His ball handling and his finishing skills inside were incredible. But who I'm really impressed with is Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, the 2 long wings that they've got starting for them. Jaylen Brown's in his second year, Tatum's in his first year. They are impressive. They can score the ball. They're athletic. They're young and they're quick. I just think that they are really the future of the Celtics, and I think the Celtics could be the best team in the East next season if LeBron decides to leave. I still think Boston is coming for one team, and that's the Cavs, because the Cavaliers are still the best team because they've got the best player in the world. And it was funny watching the Cavs against the Wizards the other night when Bradley Beal called out Cavs and said, "We're still the best team in the East," to LeBron. And LeBron went out and dropped 57 points on him like it was nothing. I mean, he dropped 57 points like he was playing against elementary school kids because it was too easy for him, driving to the hoop, also doing his fadeaways. LeBron showed his post game is the future of his career when he's, maybe 35, 36, and his athleticism starts to decline a little bit. LeBron's just going to bully people inside and really just eat them up because he's so much stronger and bigger and faster. But he really was impressive. 57 points, like 11 rebounds, had I think 7 assists. I mean, he was dominating that game. But as well in the East, the Pistons are 7-3, which is really surprising a lot of people. They've got some good talent, but they've emerged as one of the possible destinations for Eric Bledsoe. Fun fact about Eric Bledsoe, actually, he's still getting paid by the Phoenix Suns, even though he's not even playing for him. He's sitting at home, chilling, probably playing some 2K, and he's making 83 grand a day, which is pretty incredible. I think since he's been sent home by the Phoenix Suns, he's made over $800,000, and that was only like a week and a half ago. And so they said he's making $83,000 per day just to sit on his couch and do nothing. So I think the Suns really need to get rid of him because they're losing money just by, keeping him on the team and paying him. The Raptors are doing okay. The Magic are still good, but I think they'll regress back towards the mean. I think they'll kind of go under 500 in the next few weeks. 76ers are looking really strong. JJ Redick's shooting the lights out. Had 8 threes the other night, and Embiid's still good. But I am on the Ben Simmons bandwagon. That dude is amazing. He can really score. He's athletic. If he gets the same mentality as LeBron James, Ben Simmons is going to be the next LeBron James because he's the same type of player where he can pass, he can get to the rim. He just has to develop a jump shot. The Wizards struggling. The Knicks are doing a lot better than before. Cavaliers just got a great win against the Wizards. But the team that I'm going to kind of bash on a little bit right now is the Milwaukee Bucks, who everyone was hopping on the Giannis Antetokounmpo bandwagon. And I was saying, just wait. He's not that great. He's still really good, but he still can't shoot, and that's the problem. That's why Milwaukee's lost 3 straight, because people figure out how to guard Antetokounmpo, and after that, what do you have? So I think the Bucks are still very average. I still think they're probably 5th or 6th best in the East. The West has been really crazy because it's just kind of up and down with certain teams. The Rockets are still doing really well. The Warriors are the best team in the NBA still. They're playing really good basketball again. Timberwolves look sharp, but their defense is still atrocious. They are 6-3, but their point differential is -2.4, which is interesting because their offense scores 109 points a game, but their defense allows 112, which is absolutely ridiculous. Clippers started out really well, but they're kind of, again, going back to what people thought they would, and I think that's kind of normal. The Grizzlies are 6-3, playing really well. Their bench looks really strong. Tyreek Evans looks like he has been resurrected in Memphis. The Jazz are very up and down, but they beat some really impressive teams. They've got a very strong defense, only holding their opponents to 96 points a game, which is great. The Spurs started out 4-0, but are now 5-4, so they're kind of struggling now. But they'll get Kawhi Leonard back and be just fine. The Blazers, Damian Lillard is so clutch. He put the Lakers to bed the other night when he hit a step-back 3 right in Brandon Ingram's face, which was pretty nasty. Putting them at 5-4, they're in the playoff conversation this year. The Pelicans are doing pretty well actually right now. They've won a few games. They're 5-5, so they're doing all right. The Nuggets were doing well until they ran into what is the Golden State Warriors, who of course most teams run into and forget what is basketball. The Lakers are very interesting right now as well because Lonzo Ball, he's a wuss, I think, in terms of being an offensive player. He's really good at passing the ball and he's a good rebounder, but he had 0 points the other night against the Blazers, which is inexcusable because Lonzo Ball is supposed to be the face of the franchise, and while yes, he's still a rookie, the dude went 0 for like 3. Like he only took like 3 shots all game. That's really bad for the guy who's supposed to be leading his team. I think he really needs to start being more aggressive. Lonzo Ball, please give us a better name. Give the Ball family a better name, please. Be a big baller, score more points, get to the rim, and don't chicken out when you get downside with the big men. Just score the basketball. And also fix your jump shot, please. It's very ugly. Again, some of the teams that are really bad this year are the Kings and the Mavericks. Not expecting anything from them, so I'm probably not going to talk about them the rest of the year unless they lose a historical amount of games, which could be possible. The NBA is hopefully starting to get back towards what people thought was happening because the first couple weeks of the season, it was ridiculous with the Jazz destroying the Thunder and then going and losing to the Phoenix Suns. And the Phoenix Suns losing by an average of about 25 points a game, and now they're 4-5 and beating some decent teams, which is funny because I talked about Eric Bledsoe earlier. The Suns are probably doing better because they're without Eric Bledsoe. Right now, if I had to give a power rankings, I'd probably still say the Warriors are back up to number 1. I'd probably give Houston number 2, but I would throw Boston in there at number 3. I think they're playing some of the best basketball that they can. And while I'm talking about the Boston Celtics and their last game against the Thunder, I have to talk about my team real quick and how pathetic we looked in the second half. The first half showed that the Thunder can be one of the best teams in the league, if not the best, and possibly beat the Warriors, but the second half showed that we could be one of the worst teams in the West because, again, I think Carmelo Anthony forgot what is basketball and he decided to shoot 3 for 17. So I think that loss was kind of an interesting loss for them because they had an 18-point lead at half, but then Carmelo shot terribly. So if he makes only a couple of those shots, it's a totally different story, and we're talking differently about the Celtics and Thunder. But what I'm concerned about is the Thunder's offensive consistency. Their defense is actually 3rd in the NBA right now. only giving up 96.4 points a game, and their point differential is plus 8.6, so they're one of the top teams that way while they're only 4-4 as a record. But their offense is what concerns me, and it's because of inconsistent shooting. Like first half they were shooting really well, in the second half they couldn't shoot a BB in the ocean, which was really Carmelo's fault, I think. Westbrook's still looking good passing the ball. Paul George looked okay, but he was, again, it was up and down. It was great at some times, and at other times it was horrible. So their defense looking phenomenal, but their offense has really got to start picking it up, and I think it comes down to Carmelo Anthony and the bench. Carmelo's got to be consistent, which he has been until this last game. The bench is really struggling for the Thunder because once those guys go out, who do you turn to for buckets? It's not Patterson right now. It's not Felton. It's not Abrinas. I'd like to see Carmelo with the second unit a lot more because he can have more free reign in that offense and kind of do his thing, while Westbrook and Paul George can do their thing with the starting unit. Great NBA season. College basketball starts this week. Watch college basketball because it is the most wonderful time of the year, and I'm not talking about Christmas. I'm talking about college basketball and March Madness. College basketball tips off. That means March Madness is around the corner just in a few months. And tickets are on sale. Go buy tickets. Go buy tickets to March Madness because it's awesome. College basketball rankings did come out just recently with Duke obviously number 1. Duke is supposed to destroy everyone this year, but who knows with college basketball. Michigan State should be really tough with Miles Bridges leading the charge for the Spartans. Arizona's really great. Kansas is good. Kentucky, I think, is super overrated. I think they're going to be good, but they're going to be super young. I think this is the youngest team that John Calipari has ever had at UK. Kentucky's going to have to learn throughout the year. I think at the beginning of the year they'll really struggle and they'll kind of get it together by the end of the year. The bandwagon I'm on this year is Wichita State because they're returning, I think it said like 99% of their scoring from last year, 97%, something like that. Their top 7 scorers from last year. Wichita State should really dominate their conference, but they could be one of the best teams and I think compete for a national title. They've got a really great program there. Florida, North Carolina, USC round out the top 10. They should all be really good. But USC did lose a couple of recruits since that big FBI probe that's been happening in the NCAA. The rest of the top 25 I don't think really matters because it just could move up and down. There could be some surprise teams this year. I think UCLA is not going to be as good as they were last year. They do have another Ball brother, LiAngelo, who's a decent scorer, but he's not going to live up to the Lonzo Ball hype. And I don't know if he's a big baller like his older brother should be. The West Coast Conference should be good. It should be Gonzaga and St. Mary's really vying for that top spot, which would be really fun to watch. But the rest of that conference is not very good. BYU's probably going to be 3rd, but again, missed the tournament, which is really pathetic for Brigham Young University. They should be making the tournament every year, but they've also got some NCAA investigation going on, which is kind of unfortunate. Again, tune into college basketball. This Friday night is the 10th. That's when it starts. Tune in Friday night, and then Saturday there's some more games. Tune into college basketball, watch some ESPN. I'm an ESPN addict, so should you. You should be also an ESPN addict because ESPN's awesome, and it's got good shows. I'm not like Stephen A. or Max Kellerman, but I think I'm better. Anyways, thanks for tuning in. Please watch, like, subscribe, share, whatever you got to do. Show to your friends, show to your family. Thanks for watching, guys.